Hello, you've landed on the Learn the Diplomat podcast, and wherever you are in the world, from Yamoussoukro, Yaoundé, or Yerevan, and all places in between, welcome. I'm Phil McAuliffe, I'm the Lonely Diplomat, and you have tuned in to episode 32 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast. And my podcast is just like all my other services, which you can check out through thelonelydiplomat.com, is designed, the purpose is to help diplomats and those who live the diplomatic life to reconnect with themselves and the world around them. Thank you. Before we get on to the rest of the episode, thank you. And however you're joining me, whether you are listening through the podcast, through any one of the podcast services in which the Lonely Diplomat, through which you can find the Lonely Diplomat podcast, or indeed if you are joining me on YouTube by watching me, I just want to say thank you, welcome, and hello, and thank you for choosing to press play. I know that and you know that this diplomatic life has many highs and lows, and we can talk excitedly about the highs, but we can feel embarrassed or otherwise made to feel really just bad about ourselves, using my words there, for experiencing the lows of this diplomatic life. But the diplomatic life is life, and we experience the highs and the lows. My work here at the Lonely Diplomat is all about creating a safe space to engage on both the highs and the lows of this diplomatic life. In short, you're not alone, and I work to make sure that we as a global diplomatic community become our own best source of support, because nobody knows what living this diplomatic life is like except for those who live it or those who have lived it. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. This episode comes after one of you, my awesome audience, submitted a question, or a more of a, not necessarily a question, but a statement of an issue that they deal with on a regular occurrence at work, being a diplomat or working in an agency, that a diplomatic agency. And I'm really excited, keen perhaps is the better word to, or eager is a better word to describe how I'm approaching and wanted to share this episode with you, because it's on how we can feel like a fraud. And the comment that was shared to me was that after being promoted, this person feels like a fraud and wrestles within themselves regularly about feeling like a fraud. And I just want to say that you're not alone. I feel that many of us, indeed I know that many of us suffer from the thoughts and feelings of feeling like a fraud. And this feeling of being a fraud is popularly known as the impostor syndrome. And, well, it affects everyone, men and women. Perhaps not in equal measure. I don't have data to support any kind of statement of a gender breakdown there. But if you suffer from imposter syndrome, if you feel like a fraud, you're not alone. Indeed, you're in good company, because while much literature is written on the impostor syndrome from a woman's perspective, it affects people, men, women, and it can be debilitating. It can be absolutely debilitating. And one thing that I know now, after writing on this topic and speaking on this topic previously in previous content on The Lonely Diplomat, I know that the thoughts and feelings of being a fraud, imposter syndrome, whatever we want to call it, actually disproportionately affects high achievers. And don't look now, but I'm going to say that if you're a diplomat, if you work in a diplomatic agency, you are a high achiever. You have done well at school, you have done well at university, and you continue to do well in your job. And as I said, I've written about this in a blog post which I published back in October 2018 called Are You the Self-Deprecating Diplomat? And you now must pay to read that, but it was published on the, I'm going to say early October in 2018, if you want to search back in the archives on thelonelydiplomat.com/blog. And I spoke about feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter from my own lived experience in episode 6 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast on self-deprecation and my friend Joe. So after this, the invitation is there to go and read Are You a Self-Deprecating Diplomat? Or go and listen to episode 6 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast to get my experience of my complicated, let's just say, relationship with my Joe. And Joe is the character within me that loves to make me feel like an absolute fraud and point out all the shortcomings in my effort to show up in the world, just as I am in all my awesome humanity. To the question that, or the issue at hand is that, we can feel like a fraud. And I'm going to say that we can feel like a fraud soon after we start a new job, whether or not that's from a new promotion or if that's starting another diplomatic posting or starting in another role, in another capacity somewhere within our headquarters. However it is, it feels absolutely, just horrendous. It feels horrendous. We can spend so much time and effort in our own head and in our own, souls, convincing ourselves that we're not good enough. Now, a few things generally happen in this situation, and often we can receive the advice, we can give it to ourselves or someone gives it to us, and around fake it till we make it. Now, I hate that. I really do hate that, but it does, that expression, and it can serve a purpose, and indeed we can just pull our socks up, straighten our tie, or tidy ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and just get through the situation, which is making us feel inadequate, which is making us feel ill-prepared, which is making us feel like we don't belong, which is making us feel like we're a fraud. Now, that, muscling through, just getting it done, is useful. Is useful because it can prove to us that we can do difficult things. We can do things that are beyond what we thought we were capable. And that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing. That's a really good example at times. Muscling through, powering through can put many examples on that list of how we are awesome and are not a fraud. But muscling through, powering through, just getting it done, faking it till we make it, only gets us so far. It depletes us. It's exhausting to us because we have to go through the whole show, the song and dance, the palaver of convincing ourselves yet again that we are worthy, that we deserve to have a seat at that table, that we are not a fraud, that we are smart, we are capable, we're worthy of being there. And that that powering through, that muscling through it, that sheer force of will works until it doesn't. And it only works, or we can find that we no longer need to muscle through, we no longer need to power on through and fake it till we make it once we get comfortable. So after a few months, few weeks, perhaps even a few years of our job, that we find our stride, we make that job our own, and we become comfortable within ourselves, that we actually know what we're talking about and can represent our countries according to what that job demands or requires of us. And then we get promoted. Then we get another posting, or then we get some other opportunity to showcase our awesomeness. And there, our friend is again convincing us, trying to convince us that we're a fraud, trying to convince us that it's a mistake that we have a seat at that table, that it's a mistake that we got this job in the first place, that we're not qualified, that we revisit, we get back to that place, and then once again we have to power through it. We have to convince ourselves that we deserve to be there. We muscle through it, we fake it till we make it. You get my point. And again, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. The sheer effort. Let me tell you how much I appreciate it, because I understand, because I feel like a fraud so often in my work, and of course I'm not. I know rationally that I'm not, but still I wrestle within myself to show up in my awesome humanity, show up as the sum of my skills, knowledge, and experience, and commit to being the best me in that moment. I'm well familiar with that, the roiling thoughts and feelings that come with being a fraud. Indeed, as a reminder, I did write that blog, I did speak on that podcast previously in my content. I'm well familiar with it, and I know that while the thoughts and feelings of being a fraud diminish as we get comfortable, but that they resurface when we become challenged once again, I know that running, powering through, muscling through, faking it till we make it through these thoughts and feelings doesn't work forever. Indeed, it's a band-aid solution, and we know deep down, as uncomfortable as it is, that a band-aid solution is good for just getting through the day, getting it done, but it's not a long-term solution. So what are we to do beyond faking it till we make it, beyond actually believing what others say to us, that we are enough, that we are good enough, that we are experienced enough, that we're smart enough, that we're capable enough, that we're insightful enough to be in the room, to be at that table, to have our voice heard? What do? Well, we stop And we stop and we work out where those thoughts and feelings of being a fraud, those thoughts and feelings that characterize the imposter syndrome, where they're coming from and why they're making us feel that way. And we do that when we're not in that fight or flight moment, which characterizes the thoughts and feelings of feeling like a fraud, when we are nervous to have our voice heard at the conference, or we're trying to prove to ourselves that we are worthy enough to have our job, to do what we do in life, to be who we are in life. And because we can only be in fight or flight so often before we actually do ourselves significant damage mentally, physically, and emotionally, putting ourselves in fight or flight too often. So the hard response to the question, or to the statement of I'm feeling like a fraud, is getting curious about why you are feeling like a fraud. And if that's not just a little bit scary, let's try that again. give that some real thought, because but once we realize how scary that possibility is of stopping and working out why we feel this way and where it's coming from and what it's trying to tell us, we can not regress, but stay in the same rut that we have found ourselves in, of faking it till we make it, muscling through, just getting it done, just trying one more time to, in the hope that doubling down will somehow solve the problem. And yeah, that will get you through another day. But remember, being in fight or flight continually does us significant mental, physical, and emotional damage. So at some point, you will realize that you can't double down, you can't avoid it, you can't muscle through, you can't just get it done, because sooner or later you're going to have to stop and work it out. Your body, your mind will tell you that you need to do that. And when you need to do that, you need to speak up. And that's the scary part. We can imagine and the possibilities and the fear there of not being met with empathy, of being judged, terrifies us. So we stay silent. And sure, you can read a book about it, you can read a blog about it, you can listen to a podcast about it, and you can do the work within yourself quietly in the hope that it will just fix you. But friends, that's not how it works. And you need to speak up. You need to speak with someone in your life with whom you will be met with empathy and who won't judge you. Someone who will say, yep, me too. This is what works for me. This is where this comes from. Maybe you want to consider things in this way. So that might be your spouse, might be your partner, might be someone at work, might be a friend or a family member who does that. But whoever it is, whoever's earned the right to hear your story, must respond with empathy, must respond with kindness and honesty and without judgment. Because as a high achiever, I can guarantee you, if you are like me, the judgment that you heap on yourself is far worse than what anybody could ever judge of you anyway. So the courage. We need to have that courage to speak up. If you are finding that the doubling down, the muscling through, the faking it till you make it is not working anymore, and sooner or later it doesn't work. So that speaking up could happen with a friend, it could happen with a trusted mentor. And if you think that I have earned the right, I would love to have a chat with you through my mentoring service. And as I've said in previous episodes, I'm very pleased to provide my mentoring services to you if you would like. And if you would like to have me in your corner, we can have a quarterly one-on-one chat if you become a minister member of the Lonely Diplomat. We can have a monthly chat if you want to become an ambassador level member of the Lonely Diplomat. There's going to be links in the episode description, so you can go and check those deals out. But if you would like me in your corner, someone who has been a posted diplomat a few times, who has been a diplomatic spouse a few times, someone who, well, you know my story. If you feel that that I could serve you, please just reach out. I'd love to have a chat with you. But if you might have another mentor in your employing agency who you trust, you might have a coach that you want to go through and work on that. And if you don't have a coach, check out the services of Kevin Hunting on my website. And you might feel that there's something else there that you might really need some professional advice and support. So reach out, please, and speak to your counsellor, because feeling like a fraud directly speaks to our worthiness, and that can raise some very uncomfortable thoughts and feelings within ourselves. And sometimes, and there's no shame, no embarrassment in feeling that speaking with a counsellor or a therapist can help. So, and if you feel that you would like to speak to a therapist, check out my friend Jacqueline Bendorf's services, again, on my website. Anyway, please know that these thoughts and feelings within you that you are a fraud can actually be turned into a powerful ally. Once you work out where they're coming from and how those stories that you tell yourself about your worthiness, about your awesomeness, about your worthiness of having a seat at the table, having your job, doing what you do in life, once you've worked out where they're coming from, they can turn into your most powerful, most trusted ally, and things can dramatically improve. I've been where you are, I'm still where you are, and I'm here to help. So if you do, I hope that was really helpful for you. Thank you to the listener who sent through that comment to me. I hope that's been helpful for you. And if you have a question or a topic that you would like me to address on an upcoming episode of the Lonely Diplomat podcast, please send me an email to admin@thelonelydiplomat.com. And if you've got any feedback for me, good, bad, whatever, please send it through to me on email or respond via social media. Send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Thank you again for joining me on this episode of the Lonely Diplomat podcast, and I will see you again. We'll have another chat for episode 33 next week. Until then, be awesomely and humanly you, because the world really does need more you.